If you were the chief marketing officer of the Olympics, what would you do to get 100 million more eyeballs?
Dude, the Olympics is too like froofy medals, and the medals are great, but like it's so proper. To get to 100 million more eyeballs, that's actually not that hard.
Guys, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my first exit. Neil, it's really good to see you, man. Thanks for doing this. Neil, for context, this show is about exits, but Omid and I are going to selfishly use it to extract all of your techniques around growth so that we can hopefully make a little extra buck. For context, Neil has had an exit. I mean, to my knowledge, Neil, you correct me if I'm wrong. You sold Kissmetrics in 2018.
No, I've never really had like a good exit. I've had exits, never a good exit. And the Kissmetrics exam, a good exit is life-changing money. And I've never had that. I've had exits in the millions, but nothing like great. And when I say millions, I'm not talking about like 10, 20 million dollars. I'm talking about much lower than that, right? I've had terrible exits.
What is life-changing money to you?
I think it's all perspective. I don't know. I don't think my life would change much at this point. If I had a few $billion in cash sitting there, it would change. But like if I had to exit for 100 million bucks and that cash was put in my bank account, nothing would really change in my life. And I'm not saying I have $100 million or anything like that, right? I'm not trying to say I have money by any means. It's just, if you're an entrepreneur for long enough, what people forget, because everyone optimizes for the exits, and I haven't optimized for the exits because I think a little bit differently. I've had opportunities, a lot of them for exits. And not all great though. Majority actually very crappy. Some really good, and I've met them up in person and I've turned them down. The people who I know who had exits, you get 100 million bucks in your bank account or 200-300 million or whatever it is, then you got to worry about deploying it. If I have a business that's beating the S&P and spitting out tons of cash flow, and I think I can keep growing it, why would I want to sell that for lower returns? And that's typically how I look at it. I spent all these years building up a company, fixing the issues so I can keep scaling it. Do I really want to sell it and start all over again? Now, it's a little bit biased because I've been doing this long enough where I've had good cash flow, and the cash flow allows me to live a very comfortable life. Like, by no means am I rich, but I live in a house here in Los Angeles and I bought it. And I also bought another home in Los Angeles that I'm renovating. So I'm living in a home while I renovate and fix up a home. So then that way I'm comfortable and my family's comfortable, right? So it's not like I'm struggling, but by no means am I Elon Musk, rolling around in a G650 ER with tons of bodyguards and tons of, cars and all this kind of stuff. So it's just like, it's relative. What do you really think is life-changing or well-off? I really think it is perspective.
I think so you've kind of harked on this a lot. And, obviously, Omid and I, we did our research and we're diving into the Neil stuff. Also, we've been fans for a minute. I mentioned this on our call. I mean, I'll tell a small story and then we'll come back to this. Neil and I were on a call for a client of mine, and NP Digital was bidding for a contract, basically. And there was maybe 15 executives on this phone call. And it felt like really like stiff, we're going back and forth. People were meeting each other for the first time, etc. And then I remember 10 minutes in, the mic came to me, and the first thing that came out of my mouth is I said, "Yo, Neil, I'm a fan, bro. I remember back in the day you used to get Who is Neil Patel shirts on the hottest girls on campus to drive your SEO," and everyone started laughing, and we had a human moment. And through the years, you've just had so many marketing stunts, man, and you're just, one of the godfathers of SEO, one of the godfathers of marketing. And so just excited to have you here. All to say that you've historically said, things like what you just said, I'm not rich by any means. I remember listening to a Scooter Braun episode really long time ago on a podcast. And he was like, when he was younger, he spoke with a mentor, and his mentor was like, "This is the actual number that I need to afford a private jet, an extra car, a chef, all the stuff people say that they want." And Scooter was like, I was blown away by how fucking small the number was. So when you say live a good life, I'm not asking how much you make, but what's your number in I don't know, monthly recurring revenue that is hey, this is actually kind of all you need in your experience to get the good stuff and get happy and kind of get above your means?
Yeah. So for me, and I'm not saying I'm at this number, I'm not at this number or anything like that, but as long as I have a few $100,000 a month in disposable income to spend, life's pretty chill.
Interesting.
And I don't think, right? Like, just do whatever you want. I don't think people should foolishly blow the money, but like a great example of this is my daughter. You know, she's socially shy. Okay, so I had her take her to a play date with family members for the first time, and I was like, "Be good. Don't go like, I don't want to talk to you," like, and go in the corner and whatnot. And I was like, "I'll take you shopping if you're really good and you play. And if you're shy, just tell people I'm shy right now, but I'll open up in a little bit." And she's like, "Okay, I want to go to Montclair on Rodeo and I want some new jackets." And I was just cracking up. And I ended up taking her because she ended up keeping her end of the bargain. But like, I didn't really worry about the expense. You get what I mean, right? I was like, "Oh, she did what I wanted." And at the same time, I don't want to spoil her as well and just have her, you know, wrongly spoiled. And I learned that hack from a buddy of mine who got his daughter a pony, although there's not really a pony, for her birthday. And this guy's actually really well off. Like, I look poor compared to him. Like, he's on the Forbes list. He's done really well on the Forbes list. Not like $1 billion.
But like the Forbes list is kind of fake though. Like it's definitely accurate, but there's like so much weird shit that happens. I'm convinced.
No. It's inaccurate. Like, even my buddy, he's up there on the Forbes list, but I know he has so much more. And I know so many other people who should be on the Forbes list, but they're not, and they want their net worth hidden. But my buddy, you know, we were talking about wealth and what it takes, because like he hasn't had an exit. Kind of, it depends how you calculate it. He took his company public during the dot-com boom, made a killing, Forbes list, didn't work out in the long run, took all the money he made and cashed out, you know, did a lot more ventures and businesses afterwards. And eventually he got back on the Forbes list through other investments, corporations, and the list continues. But he's gone high up on the Forbes list. So I was asking him, like, you know, what's the difference between being rich and wealthy? And he's like, "Neil," he's like, "I classify you as rich." And I was like, "Okay, what do you mean by that?" He's like, "You can fly private jets if you want. You can go buy a yacht if you want." He's just like, "I would classify me as wealthy." He's like, "I can buy a sports team. It does poorly, and I can go buy another sports team and I'll still have a ton of money." He's like, "That's the difference between being wealthy and rich." And I was like, he's like, "You can't even buy one sports team." He's like, "You can be an investor in a sports team." But he's like, "I can buy the whole sports team, have it fail, and buy another sports team."
Wow, that's crazy. The perspective.
Go ahead, Omid. Yeah.
It's always so interesting how perspective can change as you're evolving and as you're moving throughout the different levels of life. So when you first started to build NP Digital, you know, to the perspective that you have now, was this a new perspective that you have kind of cultivated and grown as you've leveled up? Or have you always had this perspective on being rich from when you first started? Like, hey, when I get to this level, you know, in the past?
So my previous business did well, not Kissmetrics, but the one before that, Crazy Egg, did really well, still does really well. And then I made a lot of money through investments over the years. Some of my best returns have actually been through investments and not my own startups. But if I didn't have my own startups, I would have never had the cash flow, right? Like, I've had some really amazing returns where I threw in like a few $100,000, got back checks of like $8 million. Like, some of those returns really add up, right? And I've just been doing it long enough where my return profile has been decent, but I still made more as an entrepreneur than anything else. And making money doesn't really change your perspective, or at least for me, it didn't change this perspective. It was actually spending the money that changed my perspective.
Oh, wow.
So when you're single, right? Think of non-married guy, no kids, and you're living by yourself. I remember when my first condo that I was living in, I eventually paid it off. I bought it for $300 and something thousand. My monthly burn, including property tax and everything, no joke, was like $3,000 something a month. All right. This was a while ago, maybe like 15-ish years ago. I'm guessing on the time frame. I call it like 15, 16, 17 years ago. Right. And I was like, I was at a point in my life where I'm like, at that time, I was making enough in a year to almost live for the rest of my life. just when I was doing all of this, it gave me a perspective in life, but I wasn't really spending much. So I was making more and my income was going up. Nothing really changed in life. It wasn't until I started spending. You know, when you start buying homes for like, you know, millions and millions of dollars, you know, I'm not talking about like $1 million or 2 million. I'm talking about like substantially more. Then you're like, oh, life can actually get expensive. And then you buy some of these homes and then you buy a few more homes and then it's just stuff starts adding up. That's when you realize that, oh, money can go fast. But then depending on what your income is, you realize it's actually hard to burn a lot of this cash.
Yeah. What about how many Honda Odysseys would you need to buy in a month to burn through all that?
Yo, hold on. Let me back this shit up. Neil, have you seen the new Wolverine?
I have not seen the new Wolverine, but if he drove a Honda Odyssey, this guy's even more legit as a Wolverine.
Yeah, bro. There's a huge. Are you into movies? Is that a thing?
I am.
No?
I just wait for them to come on TV.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I love people like that, man. I friggin' love going to the movies. But they make a big Honda Odyssey joke for context. Like you have Neil talking about all this money, made $8 million S&P, blah, 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 or whatever it was. And do you legit still drive a Honda Odyssey? Like, is that a thing? So why awesome. The Honda Odyssey, bro? I don't understand it.
I like it. I'm really comfortable in the Odyssey. It's a good car. Okay. So check this out. Wife drives a Bentley Bentayga. It's an SUV. All right.
Yo, the garage is on a new level, bro, already.
Okay,
the garage is on a new level.
So she drives that, and then all of a sudden she'll drive around the street and she'll be like, yeah, people don't always let me in and stuff like that. People look at me. And then, you know, she's driving with me and she's like, wow, everyone lets you in. It's pretty easy and chill. I'm like, yeah, because I'm in a Honda Odyssey. You know, people assume you have kids in there. People are really friendly to you. If I'm in the wrong way, I need to merge over 3 people will make way. In a Bentley, people like, screw you, get out of the way, right? they don't care. People are just really friendly when you drive a Honda Odyssey. I love it. Kids spill a chicken nugget in there, no problem. Clean up the seats.
Yeah. I threw up in a Honda Odyssey once. It was the very first time I drank in high school, and I just threw up in my buddy's dad's Honda Odyssey. It was gross and not a good story. But Neil, I'm gonna flip the topic. I want to get into. I wonder if we'll cut that. We're not going to cut that out of the show. I want to talk about growth today. I mean, like my experience is that you just kind of, and I may be getting this wrong and I may be oversimplifying this, but you kind of just, you know how to make money. Like I've heard once that there's 3 skills to money. There's learning how to earn money, learning how to save money, and learning how to grow money. And just because you have one skill does sure as shit not mean that you have the others. In simple terms, actually, let me ask you this first. What do you think most people get wrong about growth when they think about growing a company, growing a business? It could be a new business. It could be an old business. What do you think most people get wrong about growth?
People think growth has to be achieved through cool, flashy, sexy stuff. Mm-hmm. Growth is usually derived from systems and processes and really boring channels that most people would never expect them to drive revenue.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure.
Well, like SEO and like PPC, et cetera.
Even more boring than that. All right. So check this out. There's a company called Marketo. Marketo got bought out by Adobe. They do SEO, pay-per-click, and all these kind of things. Where did most of their growth come from? Salesforce sales reps selling CRM solutions like Salesforce. And then on the side, they would also plug in Marketo when it was a good fit. That's a boring, ugly channel for growth. Another example for this, we manage a lot of ad spend, right? If you look at our agency in total, between all the different divisions and countries we're in, over $1 billion. All right. Most people
$1 billion in annual spend, or $1 billion in cumulative spend across across the entirety history of the agency?
No, annual, over $1 billion. Okay. So wow. Yeah, because we have clients that spend like $5 million a month, $7 million a month. It adds up really fast, right? Yeah. So, and some of them spend $5 million a month just on one platform. So then when these guys are spending all this money, they're like, oh yeah, more paid ads, more social, more SEO, or technically SEO doesn't cost money from an ad perspective, but more Google ads, more Facebook ads. Let's get into TikTok. And it's like, you're spending $10 million a month on ads? How much are you spending on conversion rate optimization? Oh, you're spending little to none. Oh, well, let's spend 20 grand on conversion optimization. I don't know what's ROI. And then you're like, hey, here's a 10% lift in your landing pages. Oh, wow, this just made our ad spend way more efficient. We're spending in total $10 million a month. Yeah, no kidding. A lot of it's boring, ugly stuff that people don't want to do. Right?
So
Yeah.
with Crazy Egg, with Crazy Egg, what were the boring, simple stuff that you applied that really made the difference?
Time. It's actually not. If you look at most big businesses, they generate most of their signups from their brand name. It doesn't matter how good they are at SEO and paid ads. It's a big misconception that, it's the TV ads that drive the signups. Like people who buy Nike because they know the brand. It's not the TV ad. Don't get me wrong. All that stuff helps, but it's not making up 90% of their sales. It's just people are familiar with the brand. You want an electric car, you may think Tesla or Rivian. You're not Googling, you may, but most people aren't Googling which electric car is best for me within this budget. People do that, but that's not the majority of the buyers. They just go and buy a Tesla. And what happens is people believe that, SEO, paid ads, all these kind of channels drive a lot of revenue. They do. But if you fast forward 10 plus years into these corporations, assuming people have leveraged all these channels, create a good product and service, have amazing support, they really put the customer first, they built a brand, a majority of their sales come from brand. That is actually how you move the needle for most big businesses. You figure out how to grow their brand. Grow their brand involves amazing product and service, keeping up with customers, being omni-channel, helping out when they're pissed off. It's all those little things that add up that people forget. That's a real way you build a big business. And it just takes a long time and most people aren't that patient. That's a sad reality.
Okay, I have a huge question on this, and it's totally selfish because, for context, is that, that's what I do. I'm a creative director. I'm a producer. I've produced podcasts for Spotify, for Sirius, for Peter independently, so many individuals, athletes, etc. Over the years, I've come across several people who are brand builders. My old boss in one of my previous workplaces, he was the VP of brand. He was the global head of brand for WeWork. And it was, I believe, Adam Newman who called him when the company was tanking. And it was like, dude, I need to turn this thing around. And he had a real foothold on how he did that. And to this day, I've never met like a better practitioner on brand. But I also grew up in like, I know you know who he is, Gary Vee, that era. And I've always questioned because I work in organic social. And so like a lot of what I do is organic. And I'll say it, I've been like insecure in this way. I'll be vulnerable to say that because a lot of my friends are in paid social. And so in paid social, you can immediately say, hey, I'm going to spend this amount of money and here's what I made back. With organic social, I've never been able to stand on that argument ever in my life. And I've actually concluded, and I think maybe I'm wrong based on what you've just said, that I've concluded that organic social is just less important and not relevant in a lot of circumstances, whereas paid social is really helpful. A lot of times people call me, say, hey, can you help me build an organic content strategy? And I actually just say, do you have paid social in place? Because right now you really need money and you're calling me and there's no way organic is going to make you money anytime soon unless you go viral. And so, and also, did you see what happened with Nike recently? This is all like kind of mirrored with like $25 billion loss in market share. Did you read that article from that executive by chance? Or
where Phil Knight's coming back, he's back on board. They're bringing back some of their old playbook when it comes to branding. Their old CMO, I think, is coming back and all that
Correct.
stuff. Yeah.
And so it was like this guy named Massimo, who's the old head of brand there, created this kind of hit piece, but it was accurate, saying Nike lost its focus on brand. This is all to say organic social all falls into this question. What's your opinion on brand as on the whole? Like, what's your opinion on where it plays a role and whether or not things convert, how important it is, how you measure it? I would love your thoughts, especially as somebody you spend $1 billion on paid annually, and yet you're saying brand matters. So I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah, so I think brand is very important. If you look at some of the biggest conversion levers is if you have a strong brand, your conversion rate is just much higher than someone who has a weak brand. Even if your landing page looks identical and your product is identical, brand makes a big impact. But what people don't seem to realize is organic social, paid social, SEO, paid ads, like even us, clients will pay us more for paid ads and SEO, but we drive a higher ROI through SEO because you're not spending the money for the traffic. You're paying for people and time, but it's still way cheaper than spending $5-6 million a month. Ideally, you do all channels that are profitable instead of just one though. And you look at a few things in which people are getting wrong is they're just like, how do we build a brand? Like if you look at Nike, they believe that it's the brand that's going to bring him back. The problem with Nike is they lost touch with their consumers. You want to go into buy Nike shoes, you have to go into a Nike store. It's hard to find their shoes in other places. And when you look at that, a lot of times the shoes aren't even in the sizes that you need. They don't have the options. It's easier to buy them online. Also, you look at their clothes, they haven't innovated much at all in the clothes versus like Lululemon, Aldo, and a lot of these are starting to take market share because some of their clothes are better. The problem that Nike did is it's not in touch with their, losing touch with their brand. It's losing touch with their customers and not innovating. That's actually the real problem with Nike. It's not their commercials or the performance or any of that. That's the real issue that they're not saying. But if you look at most people, they're not sporting Nike, clothes as compared to what they used to, like with their sweatpants, because they just haven't done as good of a job keeping up. And the reality is if you spend money on performance, you spend money on out of home, you spend money on pretty much all the channels and even branding, it all helps build a brand. It's just like people saying, oh, you spend money on Google ads, that's performance. Well, if everyone keeps seeing your Google ads, they go to your website, what do you think it's doing at the same time? It's building your brand. It all works hand in hand. You see people watching the television commercials and what happens? Oh, they go to your website now when you're starting to get more website traffic and your performance is starting to do better. It all works together. And that's the world that we're in today. It really is omni-channel. And if you're not leveraging all the channels together, you're missing out.
So how do you make sense of like spend on brand in that case? Like just for the simple stuff that is hard to measure the direct ROI from, such as, a website refresh. I mean, a website refresh is probably a bad example because you can.
No, I get it, like a billboard ad.
Yeah, like, dude, like a billboard ad or even like getting finicky. You ever been in like a brand meeting and you're going back and forth on like color for a couple hours and you're like, dude, this is
I hate that.
And like I've been in positions where we've contracted out branding agencies who spent $250,000 on it. And I've always asked, how we made sense of this spend? And so how do you make sense of the spend? Because you mentioned in the previous note, it's important. It matters to the whole marketing mix. I agree with you. How do you make sense of the spend behind it?
You just need to know that you need to do it, because if you don't do branding, you're going to miss out. And two, you can do brand recall studies to see where actually you're getting the signups and what's helping and what's not.
And to you, what's brand? So when you say you just got to know you got to do it, what's brand to you?
Brand is everything around the image. It's about what people are saying. Jeff Bezos, I think it was Jeff Bezos who said this. It's about what people are saying, when you're not in the room. Yeah. Everything that helps with that, to me, correlates with a good brand.
Yeah. This might be too esoteric for your liking, but I heard once that brand is not slogan, brand's not logo, brand's not color, brand is feeling. And if you could like identify the feeling or core feelings, 3 max of your thing, and you put it into every single piece of copy, every single piece of, visual creative, every ad, every video, every billboard, every out of home, you'll just stack it up over and over again. Last question. This is totally selfish. And
wait, to go back, I think sure. That was Seth Godin had a similar example. I don't know if he tacked onto that, but he was talking about, when you go to a hotel, what's the difference between a Marriott or a Hilton or a Hyatt? He's like, you walk the hallways, you can't tell the difference. That's not brand. He's like, you look at an Apple product, it's an Apple product, right? And he's spot on. You walk down a lot of these hallways of these hotels that you're in. If you didn't see that logo in the front of the building, you wouldn't know what hotel you're in, right? But you have
That's so true.
Apple product, a phone in your hand. I don't need a logo. I know the quality, the interface, the experience, the feeling that is an Apple product.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Omid, I know I'm taking a lot of airways up. This is my last note on this, and it's 100% selfish. And Neil, I hope you don't mind. You can just say I don't want to answer that if you don't if you don't feel comfortable. But
I'll answer it. Let's see what it is.
No. I'll be in these pitch meetings a lot, right? I'll be, I'll have like an RFP out, or I'll respond to an RFP. And there'll be a big chunk of what I do, because what I do is organic social. And then I'm always transparent about the money conversation. I said, look, if you're launching a podcast, think of it like a business, but it's really long tail. And so if you don't have any built-in audience, just don't expect to make money from this for at least 24 months. I make it really long. I know I could get it done sooner, but I want to underpromise. Or if they say, hey man, I've had calls come to me and just say, hey man, I need like a brand strategy. Can you pull one together? I got great frameworks that I use for that. But I have trouble making sense of the price point that I charge. I kind of waffle on it a little bit nervously, because I'm like, I don't know how this ties into your bottom line at all. And so I've actually just avoided like making it a part of my mix now when I sell things. And so I'm curious.
No, you should. We get a lot of companies telling us that they want to do podcasting and stuff. So first I would go in talking about the data about podcasting, how it's not competitive. There's over 1 billion blogs. Look at what blogging drives. Look at the average income of a podcast listener, how there's only like 4 million active podcasts or 4 or 5 million podcasts in total. Compare that to the population of the world per podcast versus per blog, because it's roughly, one blog for every 7 or 8 people versus one podcast for every 1,500 and something people, or 8,000. I don't know the exact number. My math is fuzzy right now. And then I would break down the average revenue per or household income per podcast listener. Salesforce has this stat somewhere on their website. We've used it in our pitch decks. And then I would end up breaking down all the corporations that are doing podcasting and they're getting into it. I would show ones that are similar in their space, but like, you got to do it. Look at these people who are at this podcast. Look at some of their guests. Look at what it's doing for their image. Look at what it's doing for their content creation. You have to create content. Look, you can slice and dice it. If you look at the top 3 forms of content that people want is long form, short form, and then interviews, like written expert talks. So then you can end up doing the interview talks like podcasts, then which also helps you create long form, and then you can slice and dice in short form. So then it's more efficient money wise as well. And then I would end up breaking down, just look at your costs and then have your 20-30% markup on top of that. Most agencies operate at 20%.
What about brand strategy? What would you say to brand strategy? And you don't need to, like, that was incredible. Thank you. What would you say to brand strategy alone? That is a service. Like, that was, that's part of it as well. Just brand strategy.
I don't know, because I've never pitched brand strategy.
Yeah, I stopped. And by the way, like, brand strategy to me is simple. It's just, you show up and you help them build a vision, a mission, and some value propositions, and then you pull together a brand kit and a brand guide. And I've done it a lot, but I stopped because I started feeling uncomfortable charging for it because I didn't know how it would tie into their bottom line.
You're worried too much about their bottom line. A lot of the corporations that pay for that just have a really large bottom line where it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's like a rounding error. And I'll give you a great example of this. I want more press coverage from Ad Age and Ad Week. So one of my buddies, funny enough, who introduced me to the company we were on a call with, the same person, introduced me to me at a PR agency, right? I won't mention the PR agency. They're like, we can get you Ad Age, Ad Week. We're really well connected.
Does it start with a K?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to say the rest of the name. Really nice people. I had a great call. I'm just like, just send me a contract, right? I'm like, what is it going to cost? They give me a rough range. They send me a contract. I didn't even read the contract. I had our in-house counsel just skim it and find out when the exit date was. So I think we negotiated them down to like 4 or 5 months guaranteed, right? And I don't know what the price was. I think they're like, we can start at 12 grand a month. I was like, cool, sounds good. We'll just start at 12 grand a month. Now we've been with them for 4 months. I haven't got any Ad Age or Ad Week coverage, which means we'll put in our exit clause, right? And am I pissed at them? No. Do I care for the introduction? No. Do I think it was a bad introduction? No. I look at it as a shot and a rounding error. Whoop-de-doo. Worst case, I waste around, call it, $48,000.
Damn.
And then you just move on with life. You get what I mean. And you got to look at...
I think my Canadian self is too nice. I really don't want to hurt people.
No, it's not about hurting people.
I'm kidding.
They tried. See, in business, when someone comes to you and they want brand strategy, dude, it's all experimentation and you're taking shots. Whether they're taking a shot with you or someone else, people spend money on stuff because they don't necessarily know exactly what's going to move the needle. They may have an idea, but you're doing a lot of stuff and some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or a Microsoft. If you're an old corporation or a new corporation, you're still experimenting and trying things, and some stuff moves the needle and some stuff doesn't. Look at these guys' earning calls. If you look at Microsoft, oh, well, this division disappointed, but this division grew like crazy. Exactly. It's all experimentation. Some things work out, some don't. And that's how you have to look at services. Of course, you want to provide a good service, which I know you do, but you can't be like, man, I don't know if the service is going to produce an exact, 5-to-1 ROI or not. Like, dude, business is experimentation. The other person on the other end spends money because they know if they don't try, they're never going to grow. And some of the things that they spend money on will work out, but most won't. And it's a numbers game. And the stuff that does, you double down on, you allocate most of the budget towards that kind of stuff.
Dude, that's literally a phenomenal answer. And that was, by the way, that was my burning question for you. I was like, if we have Neil on, I need to ask him this thing about branding. And so, dude, insane. Thank you so much. Omid has a burning question. And so Omid, I'm just gonna bluntly pass it to you. Okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I actually have two. One of them.
Neil, by the way, thank you for that, man. That was really dope. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem.
My guy brought the heat from LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one, I was just like amazed. So I was listening to one of the podcasts that you're on. I don't remember which one it was, but you were talking about how
My First Million. This is a CEO thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So you were basically saying every time you love to build a business, or every time you build a business, you're never the CEO because you're a poor manager. So what you do is the first thing that you do whenever you start a business is you find the CEO. So what is your involvement when you put a CEO in place? Do you share the idea that you have? Are you just like, I'll provide the funding? What does that process look like from ideation to execution for you?
Sure. So if I have an idea on something that could be a big market, I go and look for the person that I know who has experience in that industry, that ideally I've worked with in the past, or I know in the past has done really well as an entrepreneur, not once, but a few times. And I try to partner up with them, put in the funding so I can own the lion's share of the business, and then have them get it off the ground. I'm usually looking for that entrepreneur type, not the executive type that's worked at a big corporation. And I get the entrepreneur to try to grow it to $10-ish million as quick as possible. And then I look for the more executive corporate type of CEO who can be put in place to run it. Wow. It's a twofold. I usually have a different person from 0 to 10, it's the same person. From 10 to usually like 30, it's a different type of executive who came from a bigger corporation that's helped grow. From 30 plus, it's typically a guy who's built corporations to hundreds of millions or even run divisions at $1 billion plus in annual revenue.
How involved are you though? Like what do you do? Like, do you just forego trust and just say, fuck it, like let them execute strategy? It's your idea or this thing that you're growing or a business that you bought. So how involved are you?
I'm involved in the areas I want to be. So a great example of this is every month I get a financial update from my team. My team sends a financial update of what we did for the month, and it's long. It's actually our CFO who sends it. I literally read the first few lines, and if it's like, good month, we're above projections for the month, and annually we're on track or we're above, I don't read the rest. If they're behind, I read the rest and I try to figure out why and I help them, right? But like, I don't go to the annual planning meetings. I don't go to like the budgeting meetings, the quarterly meetings, in persons for a lot of that stuff. I'll do the stuff that's like some client facing where it's actual work because I enjoy the work. I'll do the stuff where I speak at conferences. I'll do the networking. I'll get on sales calls because I enjoy selling. Out of everything I probably enjoy the most is creating content and doing client work. I don't care for the actual running of the business. So like my CEO sometimes will call me during bad years. Hey, we missed forecast. People work really hard. They didn't hit the numbers to give out the bonus. What do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. You're the CEO. Figure out whatever you want to do. Let me know if you have any issues. And he's like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. Do whatever you want to do. That's literally my conversation on the phone in that manner. And I'm like, oh, move on.
Mate, how early can you hire a CEO? Because like Omid and I were kind of like a little newer to the game. Like, do you recommend being the CEO first, or can you just start out the friggin' gate just being like, fuck it, we're just going to hire a CEO from day one?
It depends on how much money you're willing to spend. So to give you an idea for NP Digital, I probably put in close to or somewhere around, I haven't really fully calculated. I know I spent way more than 3, but I know I spent under 5 million. So I put in maybe $4 to $5 million of my own money, if I'm guessing, right? And I eventually got paid back, but I was willing to use my money and burn money to build a business. The question is, are most people willing to do that?
Is this the same thing that you did for Crazy Egg, where you put a CEO in place and you just made the content and were client facing?
No, that company is not 20 years old, but it's getting close. See, when I was starting out as an entrepreneur, I didn't have as much money, so I couldn't do that. I'm cheating. I pretty much have money to start a business from day one.
I love that. That's so cool. Speaking of, one of my mentors gave me this advice, and I heard you say the same thing in My First Million, but yours was a little bit more specific. So, little backstory. I sold an e-commerce business for low 6 figures. It was an Amazon book publishing company. And
that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. So I sold that. And I've been just kind of sitting on the money, waiting for an opportunity to come. And I've tried a few other businesses that just did not work out, trying to find out like what I enjoy. And on the call on the My First Million podcast, you mentioned e-commerce at the time was, significantly slowed down, and the multiples have been reduced. So you recommended to purchase an e-commerce company and grow and scale it as a great opportunity. So a couple questions there. Do you still think that's a great idea? And if so, how do you what would be your criteria to, vet an e-commerce company to purchase, and then how would you grow and scale that?
Sure. So yes, I think it's still a great opportunity. There's this guy named Ezra Firestone. Have you heard of Ezra?
No, Ezra.
Okay, go check him out. He knows more about e-commerce than I do from a buying aspect, maybe even a scaling aspect, because that's all he focuses on.
Smart marketer, is this him? Ezra Firestone, smart marketer, or
like curly hair?
Oh, long hair, curly. Yeah, I see him.
Yeah. So good guy. He once sent me a cheat sheet for what to look for in e-commerce. Like reoccurring product, lightweight, so it's cheaper on the shipping. He has this whole formula. He has it somewhere. And I don't want to end up telling you exactly what it is, because I don't recall all the things on there, because I don't really buy e-commerce businesses, and I don't want to give you anything that's wrong. When you follow that formula, because he's just breaking down, basic economics of what's more profitable versus what's not, you buy something like that, assuming it's also a large TAM. And the way you go and scale it up is you leverage all the channels that they're not. Most e-commerce businesses that are selling are usually mainly Amazon or paid Facebook ads. You add in the paid Google ads, you add in the SEO, you add in the organic social, you add in the influencer marketing where you do a commission of sales, right? More on affiliate model with micro influencers. Start adding all that stuff in, you can really grow these things and scale them. And then if you need more cash flow, what you do is you flip it and then go buy one or two more of those, and then rinse and repeat. And then once you have enough cash flow, because you flipped and you have enough nest egg in your savings account, then you stop flipping, and then you just use the cash flow to keep building more and more versus continually flipping.
Wow. What fire advice. Because so far what I've been doing is I've just been investing my money into my personal brand and building that. So just shooting content and then this podcast.
You're better off just buying an e-commerce business. Dude, the personal brand is overrated. I think it is important and it can drive a lot of revenue, but I've never seen a personal brand drive anywhere near the revenue of a corporate brand.
Really? So what about...
I agree with that.
Yeah. In my first million, though, you were talking about with MP Digital, how your personal brand probably attributed to your first 30 to 40 million. And then...
No, 10. It's never driven more than 10 million in revenue. Even when we were at roughly 10 million in revenue, most of it came from my personal brand. When we grew to 30 million, only 10 million came from my personal brand. As we kept scaling up and even passing 9 figures, still no more than 10 million comes roughly from my personal brand. And I know some people have stronger personal brands than me. So instead of 10, they may be spitting at 20 or 30 or 40. But like, even if you look at Kim Kardashian or Kylie Jenner, Kylie Jenner did not build L'Oreal. I'm not trying to knock her. She's done an amazing job building a company, and props to her. I couldn't have done that with my personal brand, so I'm not trying to throw any shade on her. But the reality is it's not a Estee Lauder or L'Oreal. That's the difference between a personal brand versus a corporate brand. And at the same token, Neil Patel is no Omnicom publicist or WPP. Let's just be honest. We make millions, they make billions. That's a big difference.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, I got one more question.
No, please.
So you being the pretty much like one of the best marketers, like godfather of SEO, your personal brand is quite significant across all socials. In terms of the value that you've received from your personal brand, has it opened up doors that you previously would not have been able to get access to, given if you were just a successful entrepreneur?
Yes, but the corporate brand opens up way more doors.
Damn.
Wow.
Great example. I just had a meeting here locally last week. I had a breakfast with one of the sovereign wealth funds. Okay. Nice. They don't have like 100 billion or 200 billion under management. You're talking about a big sovereign wealth fund with over $500 billion under management. $500 billion plus is a lot of money. All right. And they don't care about Neil Patel brand. They're like, oh, cool. You work with, Adobe, Amazon, Cisco, Hewlett-Packard, Louis Vuitton, ESPN, PwC, Hewlett-Packard, Swarovski, Black & Decker, ESPN. Like the list really goes on and on of logos that we work with. LG, right? Marriott, Novartis. Like literally the list goes on and on of the big brands. Like, cool. When you're talking about people with real money, they care for stability. What do people have that are stable? Big corporations typically provide that more than a personal brand. They don't care for sexy. They got $500 billion. They can go buy sexy. What do they do if they want sexy? They just go buy a sports team. What's more sexier than that? They go pay the people. They want sexy. Oh, we'll just take this athlete and make him play soccer in our region. We now have Cristiano Ronaldo playing soccer for us. Like, that's sexy. They can just buy it.
Yeah, ultimately they want it to work. And I mean, and by the way, I know his team. We're actually having on the president of Mr. Beast's team in a few days. I love his team. Like Mr. Beast's team, they're some of the most talented creators I've ever seen on the planet. And also, to his credit, he's a fucking awesome entrepreneur. Like his team, his CEO, Mr. Beast, Jimmy, in and of himself, they're great, great people. And like, there's been a lot of talk, largely through Jimmy, through Mr. Beast Burgers, which ended up shutting down, and Feastables. They're like, oh, creator brands. And I've always, said, working in the industry, I said, oh, creators brands have like a lot of value, Prime, Logan Paul, etc. But what people are missing is how fragile they are. And like they're tremendously fragile, because right now we're living through a cancel culture that like really no one's safe. And I don't agree with the cancel culture, but it exists. And so God forbid, I don't want this to happen, because he's such a great guy. Like Mr. Beast, something happens, life happens. There was this time I had like lunch with a billionaire actually in Beverly Hills. He's a great guy. I'm really lucky to say he's become a friend over the years. And he taught me a lot. And his first business was an acquisition. I'll save you the story. But I remember I met him when I was 19. I was like, dude, the fucking balls on this guy to go out and acquire a company. He did a leveraged buyout. And so to anyone listening, basically what that means is he took the assets that a business had, and then he got a loan from the bank based on the assets the business had. And that's how he raised the money, and he purchased the company, and he found a way to come up with the rest. And it wasn't that much. It was a long time ago, but he just grew and grew and grew. And now he's a billionaire. Like I'm in Omid's boat. I think I want to acquire something, and I want to grow it. I want to like throw my marketing chops at it, throw my pay teams at it, etc. This might sound silly, but I think that what stops a lot of people, I can tell you what stops me, is it feels like it takes balls, but maybe I'm just overthinking it. Like, is it actually as deep as people make it? Is it cheaper? Is it more expensive? I feel like I got to go to the bank and take on a debt facility and all this crap. Like, how would you conceive this going from a thought to an actual reality?
You just go and do it. And yeah, it takes a lot of guts. And most people aren't willing to put it all on the line. That's really it.
What made you willing to put it all on the line?
I had nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. I won't now. I have too much to lose. My life is also pretty comfortable, right? I'm knocking on wood for good luck. But yeah.
Yeah. I'll knock on wood for you, brother.
Thank you.
So you're still making content across all socials. Given that you have so many businesses, I feel like you acquire businesses like people buy Skittles. Why are you still in the process of continuously making content, just marketing content and putting it out there? Because your content is super valuable. I do watch it. So I guess is it just because you want to keep building your personal brand, or does it fuel anything else you do?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Doesn't feel it doesn't feel the business that much. Still do it because it maintains whatever I had that's bringing in revenue for the business. But I'm hoping in like 5 years, I won't have to do it anymore. I'd be really happy if that happened. But yeah, no. And the reason we keep acquiring companies is it just tuck in more businesses, cross sell. 1 + 1 = 3 in the private equity world, if you can buy the right stuff. And we have a team in corp dev that just keeps hunting, and literally they're sending out like 40, 50 emails a day to potential companies to acquire. And, maybe we find 4 a year if we're lucky, 3 hopefully on the worst case. And we buy and just tuck in and keep growing. And it's a machine. It just keeps going at this point.
Wow, man.
Are you at all
completely shattered my mind.
Are you at all like putting some capital towards some AI driven marketing companies? Has that become interesting to you yet?
No, we do a lot of stuff internally, but I think a lot of this stuff is going to get washed out. I'm not saying AI is not here to stay. There's too many feature-based AI companies that aren't really platforms that aren't going to survive in the long run. So we're more on the sidelines. We're putting money into the boring, ugly stuff. Like, next week, my co-founder and our CEO are meeting up at an agency that's based in Europe. They're going to be in Vegas, and they're going to meet up with them and be like, oh, cool. Let's see if we can work out a deal with them. Right. And they've talked on the phone many times, already gone over their financials and numbers and teams and all that kind of stuff. But they'll start meeting in person. And our head of Europe, our managing director of all of EMEA, he already met up with them in person and met a lot of their leaders running that organization. And so did a few of our other people in Europe. So it's just a time game. If they like it, they'll put an offer. In June, we bought a company. We closed on a company that was in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. I haven't met the founders yet. I've talked to them on the phone a few times, but I'll end up meeting them when I go to Singapore in September, and I'll stop by Malaysia so I can meet them.
Dude, I absolutely love that. There's only one more question on my list, and it's kind of off topic. So, Omid, did you want to build on that before I jump?
Yeah, I just I was gonna. So, are you familiar with Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
So
Who
we
is
come
it?
from the Tony Robbins. Yeah. So we come from the Tony Robbins world. I used to be a speaker for him. And one of the things I've seen being up close is he's been wanting to, step away from his personal brand for so long. And he literally can't because it's
Too hard, won't work.
his name.
He can't do it.
Yeah.
He can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes and he invests all these different companies. He does all this different stuff. But before he was stuck to having to do the same amount of events a year. And then when COVID happened, he was able to kind of take things up to Zoom. But I mean, he's still like having to be the face. When you say in 5 years, your goal is to eventually like not do, your content, what does that look like? Like, how do you achieve that?
Just don't post anymore. My team's been posting more, but check this out. Like in our world, it's very different than Tony Robbins. I'm selling a ticket for an event for $1,000 or whatever, and then upsell people and then upsell from there. In my world, we have a contract with LG. When LG first came in as an RFP, they're saying, hey, we need help with marketing and for SEO in this division in 14 countries. And it's based on, are you in those 14 countries? What's the LinkedIn profile of the people that work in those countries that would be on their account? Like, they don't care who Neil Patel is. It's pretty much show us similar work that you've done, the results. And by the way, show me the people in these countries that would be working on my account. And if you can do a good job there, we'll consider you out of 7 that we're interviewing corporations. And then we whittle it down to 2 or 3, and then procurement helps negotiate, and then they deal with the rest. Like, that's the world that I'm in. It's way more B2B than he is. I get he's dealing with businesses as well, but he has more of a B2C brand than a B2B brand. It's more motivation, selling, helping you with your skills, and all the other stuff that he teaches. My world, you don't get hired because someone's like, I love Neil Patel. You get hired because you're going to produce results and someone's not going to lose their job. I've been in pitches for Estee Lauder, for example. And, I remember the person at Estee Lauder saying, you had the best pitch and we wanted to work with you, but we chose not to work with your company. And we had someone in there who was married to one of our employees. And we're just like, how do you know this? Or, why did we not get chosen? They knew that because they were in the company. But I was just like, why did we not get chosen? Oh, we didn't want to risk our job hiring you guys. You guys are too new of a company. And you guys aren't big enough. Okay, cool. Glad we know. Being the best isn't everything. A lot of people in our world will hire because they know if they hire someone, they produce good enough results. And if it doesn't work out, they won't get fired.
Yeah. It's like, it's risk management, man, which makes a lot of sense. I think you're on the money when it comes to Tony. This is fun because we only have a few minutes, and I think this will make it so that you have to answer this simply. In simple terms, I do really well with like models or frameworks. So let's say, a company landed on your plate today, Neil. It could be either a company that's brand new or a company that's existing. What's the framework that Neil Patel has, if any, that says, okay, this is what I do to grow it? Like, is there a checklist? Is there something you say, okay, I look at this and this and this first, I do this and this and this second? Are there categories? And I'm not looking for a golden bullet. I'm just looking to, what do you assess? What do you look at framework wise when you think about the growth of a company?
So we look at a few things. We've done enough conversion optimization tests where we look at their website and the layout to see if they're missing anything in conversions. And you can then end up running math based on how much of the revenue is new or reoccurring or reoccurring, right? Where people buy multiple times, but it's not on a subscription, to figure out how much you can impact based on previous tests you run. Then we do the same thing for SEO, paid ads, email, etc., where we're actually going into the campaigns and analyzing and seeing what they're doing wrong. Because we usually know, like when we look at paid ads, whether it's Google or Facebook or any other channel, what they're doing wrong, what we can tweak, and a rough increase in ROI with the same spend. So when we do this on all the channels, we'll then know what to tackle first based on what's going to make the company the most money.
Do you at all consider organic social as like a place to test creative for paid, or is it what assessments?
No, we think it's one of the best channels to test, and we think it's one of the best channels that you have to be on. The problem with organic, it helps build a great brand awareness, and it really helps resonate with the audience because people know when things are paid versus free. It doesn't mean paid doesn't work. We don't think organic social is better or worse than paid. It's more like you need to be on all of them, and they all feed off of each other.
What if it doesn't work? Like, what if it doesn't convert? There's no impressions behind it. You see these companies post it all the time on Instagram, on LinkedIn. No one sees it. Do you still think it matters then?
It's because they're posting the wrong content. It's just like, check out what we did. Here's a corporate award for this employee, and look what they did. Yeah, well, no one cares about that. Yeah. Let's talk about your products. Like, let's say if I'm Pepsi, okay? I'm making this up. I don't know what Pepsi's posting on their corporate profiles, but no one wants to see someone getting an award for being an amazing employee on anything. But what people would watch is you put the Mentos in Pepsi or Coke or whatever one it is, and it's skyrocketing and be like, check out how to make a Pepsi rocket. That stuff would go viral. Right?
Yeah, you're right. It's content strategy at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a content strategy. And the issue is they get all these people from Harvard in a room or that have all these degrees instead of these younger kids who just have a better pulse on what's happening in society.
Damn. We have 2 minutes for a fun question. Omid, do you want to choose a fun one to ask? I feel like the Olympic one is probably best.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. So,
are you ready?
If you,
this is our fun question.
If you were, and I know you would not be chief marketing officer, but if you were the chief marketing officer of the Olympics, what would you do to get 100 million more eyeballs in the 2024 Olympics? They had, and for reference, they had 28 million eyeballs on it.
So they want 100 million more.
Yeah.
Or 100 million total.
100 million more.
It's time for a Neil Patel stunt.
I would actually take a lot of the influencers that are on social media, give them all access passes to everything in exchange for them live streaming it and showcasing it on there.
Wow.
Bro, chefs. Okay. All right. So in classic Peter Diamandis fashion, I'm going to give you a moonshot. What if the number was 1 billion more eyeballs? And I know that's a moonshot. But
I would just say don't shoot for it because it's unrealistic. You're wasting your time and go allocate the resources to something else. But right? To get to 100 million more eyeballs, that's actually not that hard if you just take all these influencers and make them. Like, imagine Kim Kardashian's live streaming it. Do that with influencers in every major country to support their region and country. Do some contests around it, so then that way people are there, and and it helps these influencers build a bigger brand, a platform to support their country. Why wouldn't they be passionate about it? You probably don't even have to pay them; just give them free tickets and all access, and just like make them live stream certain things. And do the Olympics is too like froofy medals, and the medals are great, but like it's so proper. Oh, everyone please stand up and do the song and all this, and just be like, oh, I would just have like a celebrity with 30 million or 100 million followers be like, oh, dude, you just won gold medal. How do you feel? Like, just be more authentic and real versus it being so proper. Like, it's just too phony. I'm not saying the Olympics are phony, but like, that's not real life. People are not that like proper. They're more chill and casual. Showcase the real side of people and you'll do way better.
Damn, bro.
Wow. Well, 2028 Olympics, bro.
I know, but we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you that contract right before you stop posting on social, bro. That's how that's gonna go.
There you go.
All right, man. Yo, Neil, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was an absolute treat.
This was fun for me too. This is a great interview from my end, in which you guys asked great questions, great personality. This was actually really fun.
Wow, even
I appreciate that.
Did even the throw up thing? The first time I drank alcohol, that was a fun part of the interview.
I've thrown up in my car too, driving, but mine was from medicine.
Yeah.
By the way, that wasn't to say that I didn't like Honda Odysseys on the record. I actually love them. They're a fantastic car. That wasn't a knock. It was just a stupid high school mistake. That's all that was. Yeah. All right, folks. That's a podcast. Neil, hang out for 2 seconds. I want to make sure your files upload.
That means a lot that you said that, especially coming from you, because when Nick and I started this, our thing was we didn't want to be another interview show. We wanted to make a friend. Because at the end of the day, everyone is like sitting there answering questions, and it's like so robotic. And it's like, how do we just like
this is Omid's way of asking if you and him are friends. we just finished talking with Neil. This is the after show. Omid, how you feeling?
I feel fucking fired up. I've been making content personally, and it's still like I'm like, but is this the thing? Like, will it transform into something amazing? And I look at a lot of the influencers that I've been following, and they have personal brands, but they also have like real businesses as well. And then when I heard Neil Patel talking about e-commerce and My First Million, I was like, I was having a conversation with Rockwell, my mentor, one of my best friends, and he was like, what's the one thing in your life that you've had massive success in? And I was like, e-commerce. Like, I did a book company. That's the only thing I've like really nailed it, made reoccurring
Also
revenue,
sales though.
sold
You
it.
crushed it at Tony Robbins in sales if you give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
And sales. But but in terms of like lifestyle that I built,
Okay.
the e-commerce really helped me like live the life that I want to live, travel, work remote, work from my computer, meet some really dope people. Some of my really good friends at the wedding were in a Facebook group I met on e-commerce. But it was just kind of like, I kind of paused the e-commerce because I know I do love it, and I've just been focusing on the personal brand. But it kind of just like someone as massive as a personal brand as him just saying, bro, why are you going to spend the time doing that? Like,
it's both. I mean, well, like I'll temper it with saying that, yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about just revenue, he's probably right. But if you're thinking about what you're put here on earth to do, there's a lot. You and I have been friends for a long time, and you and I share this, that to me, there's something in my heart that I believe, is God's gift to me that I want to share with others. That is through content, it's through art, and I will not ignore that. And I suggest that you don't as well, because there's a case
this is the vehicle that we're taking for that.
Yeah, that this is one of many. And so like the idea is that don't ignore it under the guise of saying, hey, it's not revenue forward. Definitely do it, because you don't know what that's going to lead to. And I also think that, while Neil had his thoughts on personal brand, I think what he gave was like the classic business thought to it, which is that, it just doesn't make as much money as a business. And he's right. He's not wrong about that. But I do think that he grossly underestimates how much it actually has done for him, because we had a conversation on here. I don't know when this is going to be posted, and I don't know if people have listened to the Tyler Schmidt conversation, but if that's live when we post this, listen to it. If it's not, look out for it. But Tyler had a moment where he said, brand matters, and you can measure it, but we just don't know how. Like, what's the ROI of your mother? And you just know instantly when you ask that question that there's so much value. And so I know that Neil was like, it attributed $10 million to my revenue. The number's probably higher. It's not measurable. And also whether I think he admits it or not, I think he likes talking, and I think he likes sharing his gifts with the world. And I do think that that's, even if it's been an adverse effect on his company, in that by sharing an or rating, it's made him more confident in his own product. And then when he goes into pitches, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he did say the only things he likes to do from a business standpoint is make content and client facing work.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess my whole rant is just about making sure that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one, because bro, I love watching your content, and I know how much it makes you happy, and I think that it's a total both and on this one. It's definitely not one or the other.
It's kind of like, do I mean, this right here was one of the most fulfilling things I've done in a minute.
Nice.
Fucking holy shit, dude, it was amazing. But like, is it kind of just keep making content like this, and short form content, and eventually creating a course, selling coaching, and doing that full time?
Whatever you want to do, bro. Let's wrap the post show. Here's my wrap. That was fucking fire. We made a new friend. We also got like a nice nod saying that we're doing a good job. That was really nice, and so good job, man. I was nervous for that one, but that was fun.
Me too.
And we did it, bro. Amazing work.
Yeah, that was amazing. It's kind of, I mean, for anyone that's in marketing knows of Neil Patel. So being able to kind of talk to him and just make a friend and have a great conversation and look at him as a I mean, I've already said this.
I instantly regretted the throw up thing. Right when I said it, I was like, oh my God, it sounds like I'm making fun of his car, and that's not what I meant. It was like an awkward moment because I was nervous and I didn't know what to say, but I instantly regretted it. Okay.
And then in the end, he's like, I did it too.
Yeah, I know. He's like,
the Odyssey. Hey, when we go to LA, we should rent an Odyssey.
No, dude, we should actually pick him up in an Odyssey, man. I'm not kidding. 100%, dude. That's the ultimate stunt. All right, bro, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy. Peace.